You know, they say the truth will set you free, but if that's the case, our government institutions are prisoners and hostages of their own BS. Case in point, FBI Director Christopher Wray, who, and I'll give him a slight bit of credit for this, sat down with Fox News' Bret Baier to answer some tough questions. And when I say answer, I mean pretty much dodged, skirted, omitted, and lied.
You know, I hear these claims of politicization, but I can tell you that the FBI is and it's going to stay independent. And that means following the facts wherever they lead, no matter who likes it.
Okay, so explain why former President Trump was raided by your agency for classified documents he had the power to declassify, and we've yet to see Joe Biden's Penn Biden Center or super secure back of garage really even investigated, let alone raided. And speaking of the very obvious two-tiered justice system, why Mr. Wray was a Christian pro-life activist arrested by 30 of your agents in front of his family while BLMers and Antifa freaks lit cities on fire relatively unabridged for an entire summer in the name of justice.
All right, so let's talk about by the book. Mark Houck, Pennsylvania pro-life activist, arrested at his home in front of his family for an alleged violation of the Freedom of Access of Clinics Act, alleged incident which he was protesting in front of an abortion clinic. He was recently acquitted of all charges at trial. The show of force for that arrest, that decision to use that force, was that by the book?
Those decisions are made, as they should be, by the commanders on the ground in the field office who have the expertise about when to conduct operations safely and securely for the safety of everybody involved. And to my knowledge, those processes were all followed in this case.
Yeah, I mean, historically, FBI protocol is that a defendant has, if it has no criminal history, is not believed to be violent or pose a threat to public safety, that he or she is permitted to self-surrender rather than subject dynamic execution of an arrest warrant. And here's what I'm talking about is the dual system. You know, there's that for a pro-life activist, but not that for a Black Lives Matter protester who maybe torches a federal building over the summer. So that disparity, that dichotomy is what sticks in people's mind.
I understand that people have their opinions. All I can tell you is that we have one standard, which is irrespective of ideology, of politics. In this country, it doesn't matter what you're upset about or who you're upset with. You don't get to express that upset with violence. And
again, Mr. Wray, the taxpayers who paid for $1 to $2 billion in damages nationally thanks to BLM in the summer of 2020 alone would like to have a word with you on that one. But as annoying as the entirety of his interview was due to his sheer smugness and shamelessness that oozed out of his every pore, this was by far my favorite lie.
The FBI is not in the business of functioning as the truth police.
Understood.
So we don't tell social media companies to censor anything.
Well,
or
the Twitter files suggest something different. I mean, there was an FBI request numerous times. Taibbi puts it out, FBI San Francisco request to ban certain accounts. Twitter personnel in this case went on to look for reasons to suspend all 4 accounts that the FBI wanted to ban or suspend. Is it appropriate to flag social media accounts on Twitter or elsewhere due to politics or government policies when it comes to COVID? Is it appropriate in any way? You're saying it doesn't happen, but there's evidence that it had.
We don't tell social media companies to ban accounts.
But you suggest.
Well, what we do is tell social media companies about information that we have about foreign disinformation campaigns by foreign actors, by foreign intelligence services. And those companies then make decisions about what, if anything, they want to do about it.
What foreign disinformation campaign involved American citizens questioning COVID origins, lockdowns, masks, and experimental vaccines and their mandates, Mr. Wray? Folks, he sat there and he bald-faced lied to us, and guess what? He's probably going to get away with it, and he's probably going to do it again and again and again. This is Groundhog's Day, and we the people would like a word with the gopher, or rather the swamp rats who keep lying to us like we're stupid. Hell, even liberals aren't this stupid. And as for Chris Wray, he was nominated to the FBI director spot by Trump. So that just goes to show how deep this swamp runs. Who can we trust? Anyone? Bueller? How can these people sleep at night? You know, say what you want about Donald Trump, but he didn't do this to the American people. Heck, he didn't even do this to his political enemies. I don't know where we go from here, but this ain't it. My next guest is a mother and former Georgetown University professor who is hell-bent on battling what she calls the woke army, infiltrating our schools and teaching young people to hate white people and America as a whole. And she took her testimony all the way to Congress. Take a look.
My father made this shirt for me, inspired by the gown that Representative Ocasio-Cortez wore to the Met Gala. And it says on here the names that we, the parents in the United States of America, have been called, including in the video that you featured, Chairman Raskin. Things like domestic terrorist, white supremacist, QAnon moms. What is it that we, the parents, have dared to stand up against in the United States of America over the last couple years? It is a divisive ideology expressed through this book called Critical Race Theory. It is a book that is taught in law schools, but it is translated into our school systems with books like this, Not My Idea, a book about whiteness, the trickle-down effect of the demonization of any human being because of their race.
And joining me now is author of Woke Army and journalist Azra Nomani. Azra, thank you so much for being with me, and your testimony was so compelling. I know that you have dedicated yourself to fighting the woke army. So I want to start off right now with, what should parents do? What can they learn from you on how to battle this in their own school boards and their own kids' schools?
Well, thank you so much for having me speak with you, Tomi. I'm so happy to, reach your audience and talk to them about everything that I've learned over literally 20 years of battling this woke army. So the first thing I want to say is take, guidance from what Tomi does every single day. Be unapologetic in who you are and what your values are about. When I stood, sat there in Congress, I wore that shirt intentionally because I wanted them to look at me and see in front of their faces all those names that they have called us to try to shut us up. And Tomi, you've been the target of character assassinations yourself. And the best thing that we can teach our children is to stand up with moral courage.
It's so difficult right now because they are going after young people, whether it's through the rainbow mafia, LGBTQ grooming, gender affirmation, that kind of thing, or it's the CRT, or it's the BLM. I mean, you name it. Kids are bombarded with this every single day. They spend more time in school than they spend at home with their parents or in other extracurricular activities. So it's no wonder that kids are coming home essentially Marxist communists at this point. And it's being put into children's books while they're out there banning books like James and the Giant Peach because they say things that are offensive to fat people. They're out there putting in books that have soft porn and then, of course, critical race theory. What can parents do at the local level to root this out and to do it if they don't have the intestinal fortitude of someone like you who is so unapologetic and has so much charisma? They feel like they just don't have it within them.
I feel that way too, though, Tomi. Seriously, I am over at my neighbor's house right now because they're fixing the floors in my house. They're hammering away. I don't feel like I'm at my very best right now, and I want to do my best for you, Tomi, and communicate this message. But we have to practice what we preach with our kids, which is just show up. I may not have my makeup on perfectly. I may not look the best that I want to look. I wanted to lose 20 pounds before I launched this book out into the world, so I'd be in great fighting spirit. We all have those aspirations for ourselves, but what you are and who you are is good enough. And when you go and you speak from the heart about that which concerns you for the future of the kids and the future of America, it reverberates. I was just that mom, June 2020. Tomi, most of the stuff that you just said, you laid out, I would have thought was hyperbole back then. But I didn't bring these books to Congress, but I'm bringing them here. This is indeed, just like you said, the BLM notebook, that is put in the hands of our little children to push the critical race theory, the activism, the indoctrination. And then I don't know if you've seen this lovely classic, Tomi. If you're a drag queen and you know it, they're taking the songs and the words that children are familiar with, putting them in these colorful, images, and then sending these messages, if you're a drag queen and you know it, say ta-da. It just goes on and on like this. And what's the intention? The intention is to indoctrinate. And, I have always been a classic liberal all my life. Nothing has changed in my point of view. I'm probably, by many people's definition, a feminist. And I consider myself a person who stands up for human rights and women's rights. But this is about children's rights, and this is about not exposing children to ideas that are beyond their age appropriate level. And unfortunately, these are folks who, just like you say, they take the system that we have of public schools and now private schools too, and they've turned them into indoctrination camps.
I've long said that if the thing that you're most worried about is being called a name, you don't have your priorities in order. But that is a tactic that gets a lot of people to shut up, especially a lot of parents, because they're in this spot where they don't want to be called like you've been called the face of white supremacy. They don't want to be called a QAnon mom. They don't want to be called a domestic terrorist or a white supremacist or a homophobe. They don't want to be called a name. And they don't want, even more so, what they do to impact their kids at school and then have their kids be called those names. So it's a cycle, and it's really hard to break. But I do find that whether it's in conservatism, whether it's at a college campus, or whether it's in a younger grade or a younger classroom, parents that stand up find that other parents will join them in that fight. Sometimes it just takes one. But I want to talk to you about the motivation behind all of this, because we know it's happening, right? We know that these are indoctrination camps. But I try to ask all of my guests why they think educators and administrators, why are they doing this? What is their goal for this practice?
Yeah, I would never have imagined that this could have been possible in America's public school system. But this book that I've written is a strange entry point. Down here in the corner is the flag of Islam. I'm a Muslim. And up in the far corner is a flag, the symbol of communism, socialism, Marxism, the hard left. And so what's happened is that I came in to this fight as a Muslim reformer, as a feminist, fighting for equal rights, human rights. And what I learned is what we know, which is the indoctrination starts in the schools, right? A lot of people are familiar with the term madrasas. Well, I was born in India. I come from South Asia, and I know those madrasas very well. They are the indoctrination camps for the extremist interpretation of Islam. So that's how I arrived into this conversation about America's K through 12 system. Since 2001, I have been fighting for an interpretation of Islam inside the madrasa and inside society that's an Islam of grace, an Islam in which women get equal rights, in which you do not kill somebody because they are LGBTQ. You can have whatever moral position you want, but you don't kill someone. A mother who doesn't wear a wedding ring is not punished by a jail sentence or death. It's an Islam of the 21st century. But Tomi, just like you, I have been called every name in the book, right? Islamophobe, anti-Muslim, and it will be repeated, with just you and me having this conversation together. But what I saw in that examination of Islamic indoctrination is what is happening now in our K through 12 schools with wokeism. This is the new ism that we're fighting. I could never have imagined that this kind of sectarian identity politics that I had been fighting in my Muslim community would be now the practice of teachers in the United States of America, separating children by race, by gender, making them play ridiculous games like privilege bingo. Can you just imagine having them walk the oppression walk and walk into an oppression matrix to decide whether they're the oppressed or the oppressor? It's an ideology of division. And that's what, it's a strange, even for me, when I saw this cover, it was shocking and jarring. But these are the two isms that should help us understand why they're doing what they're doing. Tomi, to your question, they are doing this because they want to dumb down our kids and then indoctrinate them with their divisive ideology.
We'll be remembered for how we fight this fight. Where can people get your book to learn more about everything that you just told us?
They can get the book at Amazon.com, and please do buy it there and write a review, because Tomi, you've got your haters and they're my haters. They're already on there trying to give the book 1-star reviews. So go on there and fix the algorithm, you guys. You have the power. So please do get the book, because this is a work of love on my part. It's a work of love for this nation that gave me a home as a 4-year-old girl arriving as an immigrant from India.
We appreciate everything that you've done and being one of those brave people that's willing to stand and take the arrows for the greater good. And I hope everyone will get your book, because it's an incredible message and you're incredibly brave to deliver it. Please keep doing what you're doing. Please keep fighting the good fight. And thank you so much for being with me.
Oh, thank you, Tomi. And I wish everyone great courage. You've got it in you to stand up for our country. Thank you.
Thank you. A wonderful message.